Hello everyone, I'm Babla Jonathan and this is the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital. Dwelling our top stories tonight, Mancho BBC detainee of the Anglophone crisis will still have to wait till the 24th of April 2018 to know his fate. The hearing of the case between Mancho BBC and the state that the Special Criminal Court in the nation's political capital Yaoundé was adjourned today, and the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, maintains all guards in the country's upper house of parliament. He appointed the old guards, including Nyat Ndifendi Marcel, maintained as Senate President, and others yesterday, and he equally appointed more chiefs in the upper house of parliament to complete the 100 making up the country's Senate. The case pitting civil society activist Mancho BBC and the state of Cameroon has been adjourned to the 24th of April 2018. The hearing took place today at the Special Criminal Court in the nation's political capital Yaoundé, and his lawyers reported to have requested for the adjournment of the case to the 24th of April 2018, and so he will have to wait again to know his fate, whether he will be sentenced or found guilty and sentenced like the others who have already been sentenced to up to 12 years in prison, and they have to pay about 5 million francs CFA as fines. That is the case of Mancho BBC that was being heard today at the Special Criminal Court in the nation's political capital Yaoundé. And I told you in the headlines, the country's upper house of parliament is now complete after the appointment of 30 senators by the President of the Republic, and that was yesterday. He maintained Nyat Ndifendi Marcel as Senate President and also appointed other old guards and popular names, including Fonvi Mukete, Daikole Daisala, David Etame Masuma, and others. And traditional leaders make up over 1/3 of the 30 senators appointed by the President of the Republic. Many of them are from the northwest region of the country, the northwest and the southwest regions of the country under socio-political crisis. Among them His Royal Highness the Fon of Balinyonga Du Ganyonga III, and of course Fon Chafa of Bangula. No militant of the Social Democratic Front features on the list of the senators appointed by the President of the Republic, and the party's shadow cabinet Minister of Communication Jean-Robert Wafo says the SDF maintains its stance on entry into the parliament through elections and not appointment. And there was widespread celebration across the west region of the country, notably in the Ndé division yesterday. The Ndé division, from where hails the Senate President Marcel Nyat Ndifendi. His appointment by the President of the Republic was being celebrated notably by militants of the social, rather the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement yesterday. We have details in this report compiled by Innocent Aze.
A euphoric atmosphere in the west region of Cameroon. 3 of theirs have been appointed as part of the second batch of senators by a presidential decree Thursday. They are outgoing Senate President Marcel Nyat Ndifendi, Ibrahim Bombonjoya, Njomo Kamga Onore. The population of Ndé hailed the head of state Paul Biya for trusting and reappointing their son and father Marcel Nyat Ndifendi. This confidence bestowed on Marcel Nyat, according to the population, is a call for celebration. Le peuple Medumba est en fête, en joie. They believe more will be achieved with the outgoing Senate President.
C'est quelqu'un qui ne se fatigue pas.
The population of Ndé does believe all their plights raised will be channeled as usual directly to the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, for them to be redressed.
There was equally celebration in the Northwest Regional Capital, Bamenda, yesterday, notably after the appointment of Regina Mundi, who was the list leader during the senatorial election for the CPDM in the Northwest region of the country. She was equally among those appointed by the President of the Republic. Now, here's an extract of Regina Mundi. She spoke to our correspondents in Bamenda, Stella and Ginny Edmond. Take a listen.
Well, I feel very elated, very excited, and my heart is filled with gratitude to the head of state for President Paul Biya for appointing me as one of the senators for the Northwest region. I'm very, very grateful to him, and I thank him very, very much. And I also want to thank the administration who have been part of this exercise, and I thank the supporters, the CPDM militants, the mayors and the councillors. I thank them all very, very much, because it is their own effort and contributions that probably gave the head of state the confidence to bestow this honor on me. And it is, well, of great honor too to know that I am part of the team that will be working for this region. Because you know that the head of state's first priority is for the population, that the population should be satisfied. And all efforts is aimed at satisfaction for the population. So as part of this team, I would say that we would work very hard, hand in hand, I hope, with the LDF, some LDF senators, that we would not disappoint the head of state to work for the population of this region. And why not for the whole country? Because what happens here affects the nation as a whole. So I'm very happy, and I have to thank you journalists also very much for being very constructive in your reporting, and I hope that this will continue, that we have very constructive reporting from this region, that we have journalists who want to develop the nation, you know, by your reporting.
Our correspondents in the Northwest Regional Capital, Bamenda, equally caught up with some militants of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, who reacted on the appointment of Regina Mundi by the President of the Republic. And this is what they had to say.
To thank God and to thank all those who have worked, and thank everybody for whatever they have done, that today she has been appointed a senator. I know that she's a God-fearing woman, she's hardworking, and she's always very objective and open-minded. So I know that she's going to do her best for the development of the people of the Northwest and Cameroon in general. I'm very happy about it because she has been so committed and devoted to her activities as a politician in the Northwest. So I want to thank God for this. She's noted of bringing people together, sharing ideas, very interested in women development, and she's very interested in bringing people together and improving. I don't know.
A militant of the CPDM and an elite of Tuba. And very, very excited, very excited for this nomination. It's a recognition of the hard work that Mamundi has put in. And we know that in this time of crisis, Mamundi has been one of our leaders in this region. So I know and I expect that with this recognition from the highest levels, she will continue to carry on this very important work for our people, for our region, and for the nation of Cameroon.
The National Convention of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party of Professor Maurice Kamto opens tomorrow at the Yaoundé Conference Center. Ahead of that event, there is a conflict between the hierarchy of the CRM political party and the management of the Yaoundé Conference Center over the picture of the President of the Republic, Paul Biya. The organizing committee of the National Convention of the CRM is demanding that the picture of the President of the Republic should be taken off the wall in the hall in which the convention will be taking place, but the management of the Yaoundé Conference Center is refusing to do so. Now, for greater details, here's an extract of the communication officer of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party. Sustain me that report. Take it.
This is the second convention for the CRM between 5 years, because 5 years ago we founded this political party, and since 5 years we are in the National Assembly, and we are the youngest political party in the National Assembly. Only 5 years. The older political party in the National Assembly was born in 1948, another one in 1966 or 1985, and some other one, it was in the 90s, in 1990 or 1992. We are the youngest, but we are there among 305 political parties in Cameroon. So we are increasing. We are working on the field, on the hotspot, political hotspots. So we think that now our hope, our ambition, we are convinced that we should be the first political party in Cameroon.
In the report coming up next, compiled by Rabiatu Ali, we take a look at the fight against urban disorder, a phenomenon that is growing in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. And during a surprise stopover at the Grand Anga market in the Douala 4 municipality, the divisional officer of that part of the city of Douala, Ekwa Mbarga Jean-Marc, urged the business persons who are doing business along the road to leave or face the heavy arm of the law. Details, Rabia Tuali.
Grand Anga Market, Friday afternoon. An unexpected visitor surprises business persons in the market. He is the divisional officer for Douala 4, Ekwa Mbarga Jean-Marc, who has come to put order in the market that has almost taken the main road hostage. According to the divisional officer, in line with the instructions given to us by the senior divisional officer of Wuri, we shall be making unannounced visits to stop urban disorder. Business persons are already settling on the highway. Just imagine for a moment that a lorry makes a wrong turn. A good number of persons will perish. In the course of this surprise visit by the divisional officer, at least 100 liters of roadside sold fuel, commonly known as Zwazwa, was seized by the DO. The fuel, according to Ekwa Mbarga Jean-Marc, will be thoroughly investigated before it shall be auctioned or destroyed. Even though the action taken by the government is laudable by all, the problem of business persons selling inside dirt remains another key aspect, as the Grand Anga market is engulfed by dirt which is still to be carried away.
That was rather smart. Jikan Gabriel reporting there on the fight against urban disorder in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. And in a related story, a consultant in architecture has decried the poor state of road networks and buildings in the economic capital, Douala, blaming it on poor architectural work done as far as road networks and buildings, and of course other issues are concerned in the city of Douala. He was speaking to Equinoxe television earlier today on the sidelines of the meeting of architects here in the economic capital Douala. Now for greater details, here's an extract of Chris Nazar Riba. He's a consultant from the Build Environment Consultancy. Take a listen.
Normally sees something before the thing manifests. So when I look at Douala, I say that this is a town that has a lot of potential, but as it stands, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I know that the community urban de Douala have a number of ideas in terms of setting up a community company to begin to tackle some of those issues. But it has a lot of potential, but as it is, there needs to be a significant amount of intervention for that potential to be fully realized. You have to look at, first of all, the whole of Douala as a city. You have to look at the urban planning. Where are the residential areas? Where is the central business district? Which zone would you describe as one where you can attract tourists? Where is the airport situated? What are the main transport routes through Douala? If you're living in the southwest region, you're going to the central region, how do you navigate through Douala? So I think for me, for Douala, one of the first issues is the transport network, because the transport network makes it a very, very challenging city, and business would lose money. You know, if you can get something from A to B quicker, then you actually affect your business quicker. So the first thing for me is transportation. Then obviously the second thing I believe which Douala has, which is a huge challenge, is not just architectural, but it affects the cityscape and design, is the urban influx. Those who come from the rural areas into the urban areas to try to make their lives better. You can't stop that. So I think that there needs to be a mechanism and a program to actually cater for that population who tend to be the marginalized groups and who tend to operate in the informal sector. So you see, this is a problem which is not just the architecture, what you see, but there are other layers beneath that, you know, the social, the cultural, and the immigration and migration. So that's the second thing. Now the third thing, I believe, is to do with, if Douala is quite, in terms of its location above sea level, is quite low compared to a town like Boya or Chang. You know, in Boya and Chang, the temperature is quite subdued, it's quite pleasant. But in Douala, because the temperature is so hot, the designs need to have a lot of cross ventilation. But you enter into some buildings that do not have air conditioning, there is not sufficient cross ventilation. So I think in terms of designing the specific building, there needs to be more cross ventilation. The other thing as well is that Cameroon is blessed with a lot of flora and fauna. You know, we have a lot of trees. So there needs to be more structures that provide shading. And you can get that with natural devices like trees. So in terms of the urban planning, those are some things that can be implemented into the process in terms of the design.
Spanish Navy is stepping up efforts to boost the capacity of the Cameroonian Navy and those of other countries in the Gulf of Guinea in order to help them to adequately respond to threats from pirates and other individuals or other attackers on the high seas. And this is the purpose of some maritime activities that are being organized here in the economic capital, Douala. Innocent has the details in this report.
The Spanish Navy, led by Captain Alvaro Zaragoza Ruiz, will be in Cameroon for a duration of 5 days. They anchored at the Douala seaport April 12. Their main objective is to have a cooperation tie with the Cameroonian Navy that will be beneficial to both countries.
Also to know what's happening here in the Gulf of Guinea, to understand the maritime environment so we can do a safer maritime environment here.
Much focus is on different maritime capacity building disciplines.
We're working on diving operations, we're working on maritime interdiction operations to be able to board the vessel. We also are working on firefighting, damage control exercises, and also on medical exercises. So those are all the branches that we're working right now.
It is not the first time the ship known as Infanta Elena, all the way from Spain, anchors at the Douala seaport for such a mission.
This is the 5th time a Spanish patrol vessel comes to Douala. We've been working also from a long time from the distance, although we cannot be here on a permanent way. So we are working. It's not only what you see, we also work at sea, and well, Spain has interest in being here in the Gulf of Guinea. This is a very particular area, so working with Cameroon, it's one of the best things we can do at this moment.
An initiative heartily embraced by marine personnel in Cameroon. With hope, activities of marines in the country will gain some degree of quality.
Coming up in the second segment of this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, we shall take a look at the new configuration of the Senate in Cameroon. It has practically become an all-CPDM upper house of parliament, with the main opposition political party, the Social Democratic Front of John Frundi, having just 7 seats, while the CPDM takes the lion's share of the seats in the country's upper house of parliament. We shall equally take a look at the postponement or the adjournment of the case of Mancho BBC, and of course the sentencing of some other detainees of the Anglophone crisis and the consequences on the socio-political and security impasse in the 2 Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon. Our guest is a veteran journalist, ELI Smith. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us in this edition of Talking Point on Equinoxe Television. Our guest is ELI Smith, a veteran journalist. ELI Smith, you're welcome.
It's a pleasure having me here today.
First question, what's your take on the adjournment, the continuous adjournment of the case between Mancho BBC and the state of Cameroon?
Well, I'm very surprised, and maybe to paraphrase what I think a friend of mine called Agbobala said the other day, is that we are shocked. And we think that the government of Cameroon is deaf and mute as far as negotiations or dialogue are concerned.
So, do you think that it should have been released?
I think so. You know, this is a country, we have no place as home. Cameroon is our home. A serious government does everything possible to appease the situation. And one way of appeasing the situation currently in West Cameroon is to release unconditionally all those who have been arrested, and also the ringleaders, like the names like Mancho BBC, Penn Terence, Conrad C., Patrick Dango. All those people have to be released because they have no place there.
And instead of release, we instead have others like Penn Terence that you cited earlier, who have already been sentenced to about 12 years in jail and with a fine of 5 million francs CFA. What could be the consequences of this on the current situation in the northwest and southwest region?
I think it is going to increase the insecurity or the instability in the region. It is not going to solve the situation, because as I said, I may be repeating myself, if a government is serious, what we do is that it is not a matter of victor or vanquish. What is important is the stability and the growth of this country, which means that the government had to at least show that they want peace and stability in the northwest and southwest regions. By keeping them, may I remind you that you have about 700 English-speaking Cameroonians or Anglophones who are in the jails of Yaoundé, Bafia, Boya, and some jails in Bamenda that people do not know.
Now, the continuous adjournment of the case of Mancho BBC and the jail term slammed on Terence, Penn Terence and the others, are these indicators of poor management of the crisis? Because so far the situation has been worsening on the ground, and it's like from the other side the solution seems to be radicalizing more and more persons in the northwest and southwest regions.
If you could recall, perhaps you not, but most people, it is on record, I could remember that when Fontaine, Neba, and Agbobala were arrested, there was a media here called Balafon, and I took part in it. I said it was a monumental mistake that the government was to regret. That is, sending out of the way moderate voices and creating a boulevard for extremist forces, which means now that when the government doesn't try to look for ways and means of appeasing the situation, continuous postponement of the sentences of people like Mancho BBC, and the sentencing, the sentence slam on an individual like Terence, Terence, it shows that the thing is not going to, we are not going to have a solution right now. What is going to happen is that people are going to become more and more radicalized, and then the ordinary masses of the people in the northwest and southwest regions are going to be victims.
And this call has been coming on again and again, notably from the civil society and people like Barrister Agbobala, who is the founder and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Central Africa. But it has yielded no fruit to now. And government members will tell you that, how do you expect a terrorist, as they refer to them, to be released?
Well, you can call people all type of names when you want to. And may I remind you that in neighboring Congo, there was one guy called Pastor Ntumi. And just 2 years ago, he was called all names, terrorists, whatever you mean. I have a colleague called Guy Fortuné, who was arrested simply because he interviewed Pastor Ntumi. But today, the government of Congo is negotiating with him in order to bring peace in the Pool region. Those people are not terrorists. You know, one man's terrorist can be another man's freedom fighter. The problem is that the government made a monumental error. I'm not saying right here that on the other side everybody is an angel or Jesus Christ, but the person who had the ball to play were the government officials, and they played it wrongly, and to their discharge is simply because they don't know the history of people of West Cameroon. If they knew it, there are some mistakes they will not commit, and they are still committing the same mistake, because beside the government, even the elites, so-called elites of Anglophone Cameroons, are also responsible for what is going on currently in West Cameroon. They have not listened to people like Neba Fontem. They have not listened to people like Agbobala. And that's where we are on the highway to oblivion. It is so total disaster.
And beside the case of Mancho BBC and the others, there is equally the case of Sisiku Ayuktabe and the others who were arrested in the Federal Republic of Nigeria and brought back to Cameroon, even though the Minister of Communication talked of extradition. But lawyers indicated that it wasn't extradition because the procedures were not respected. And now there is complete silence on their case. The minister said they were going to face in the hands of the judiciary, but nothing is being said about them up to now.
I think even the case of Ayuktabe, you know, the government do transform ordinary people into heroes. It's just like the case of Mancho BBC. As long as you keep on postponing his release, you make him to become an icon. He's already won. And the case of Ayuktabe and co., it wasn't an extradition, it was an arrest taking place in Nigeria in utter secrecy. But I also think that for the peace, stability, and unity of this country, people like Ayuktabe have to be released unconditionally. You talk with everybody, even Mr. Barghouti, who is a member of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. He is in prison. The Israeli government talks to him. Even Abdullah Öcalan, who was a PKK leader arrested in Nairobi, I think in 1999, people talk with him. So I don't see the reason why the Cameroon government would not speak with Ayuktabe. Ayuktabe has to be released, and I stand by that, in order for peace, stability, and the unity of this country to be long-lasting.
And the bishops of the Roman Catholic Church who are converged on Yaoundé have been calling for meaningful dialogue, and the bishop of the Bamenda Archdiocese, for example, said the Sisiku Ayuktabe and his collaborators should be released and brought to the dialogue table. Do you see this happening?
Yes, in a civilized country, in
Cameroon.
Well, I'm saying civilized people who understand the basic tenet of a country. You know, a country, it doesn't matter, it is not Eli Smith, it is not one other person. It is the future of Cameroon. When we are talking about a country, we have to understand that we shall all die, but that country is going to stay forever. And what the Bishop of Bamenda have said, that Ayuktabe should be part of the negotiation whenever it does start, is something which is correct. There's something, when I hear some people claim to be intellectuals, doctorate degrees and whatever, I smile. In Latin America, the FARC, They stood against the Colombian government for 54 years, the longest rebel movement in the Western Hemisphere. But didn't they sit and speak and talk with the Colombian government? They did. So I think if we are really serious, we really love this country, and we want it to stay in one block, we should negotiate unconditionally, and that Ayuk Tabe should be part and parcel of it. Even in that Nigeria people talk about, was Ojukwu not a rebel leader? But did people not sit around and spoke with Ojukwu? Did Ojukwu not come back? He came back. And at the end of the Nigerian Civil War, there was this motto of no victor, no vanquish. And in the case of Cameroon, we don't have to think that it's a matter of life and death. Ayuk Tabe and any other English-speaking Cameroonian who has been arrested has to be released unconditionally.
And brought to the dialogue table.
And brought to the dialogue table. People who merit to be the leaders, like Ayuk Tabe, like Agbobala, Fontem, Mancho, BBC, those who are really the representative of the people of West Cameroon should come on the dialogue table, as well as members of the civil society, people like the church groups that you just named. They also are actors that are respected in West Cameroon, because in West Cameroon, people are really suffering. We are agonizing.
And since most of these persons who have been referred to today as terrorists, secessionists, and so on, they stand for division. They want their own country. Do you think that it's possible to discuss secession?
When you are going on a negotiation table, all options are on the table. And don't mind those things. It can be kind of bluffing or bravados, right?
The Yaoundé administration has been totally against secession. They have maintained this statement. Cameroon is one and indivisible, and indicating that secession is a taboo.
Yeah, but at the origin of all this, most of those people who have become secessionists were really pan-Cameroonian. And the Yaoundé regime needs to ask this question: why is it that a bunch of people who used to be patriotic Cameroonians have all of a sudden desire or are desiring to secede? That's the question. But the problem is, until we are honest with ourselves, the crux or the origin of the problem that we have in Cameroon today is simply because the negotiation or the tenet of the unity that created or brought together Republic of Cameroon, which is capital Yaoundé, and Southern Cameroon, capital Buea, have not been respected. If they were respected, we will not be where we are today. That's what Paul said. We should go back and negotiate a second Fumban resolution. But then a negotiation is a negotiation. There will be compromises. Some people might be for secession today, and tomorrow they might be against it. It depends on what you bring on the table. But if you have a kind of cavalier manner and think that you can massacre a number of people, arrest them, humiliate them, and send them to jail or put them under lock and key, and expect that the same thing that happened here in 1958 to 1970, it cannot be replicated on that side of West Cameroon.
Now let's talk about the Senate. Today, the Senate in Cameroon is practically an all CPDM upper house of parliament, after the party of President Paul Biya grabbed for 63 of the 70 seats at the 25th of March senatorial election. And just yesterday, the President of the Republic appointed the remaining 30, and many of them appointed are from the CPDM, none from the Social Democratic Front, and just a few from some few political parties like the ANDP and the NUDP and so on. What do you think about the new configuration of the Senate today?
Well, not much has changed, but one thing which is constant is that people might sometimes dispute it, or out of bad faith want to refuse it. The Social Democratic Front is the largest intra and extra parliamentary opposition, lower and upper house of parliament. So I think the configuration hasn't changed. My take was this: I thought perhaps at the head of the Senate there could have been a change in order to perhaps cut the grass or the grass under the feet of people who think, and which is true, it's not a matter of thinking, that Anglophones have been marginalized in this country in utter disregard of the 1961 Fumban Agreement. But it has not been done. But so I'm not very surprised. I think it was not surprised for the CPDM to be the dominant force of the Senate.
And those who are referred to by some as the old guards have been maintained. Nyad Jifenji myself, on V.E. Mukete, Daikole Daisala, and so on.
Yes, this is normal. Perhaps there are other people who were consulted and they refused to accept it. But I think that it was very normal. I don't think anybody would have expected a change from Paul Biya to nominate other kinds. He prefers, because he's an old person, it is normal to have people of your kind appointed at the Senate. And first of all, what has the Senate even got to do? It is a place which is just a waste of fun. I don't see anything the Senate has got to do in the Republic of Cameroon currently. The lower house is doing their job as it is required, but the Senate, to me, it's a non-event.
Now, many more chiefs have equally been appointed, notably from the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Do you see this as something that the President of the Republic is using to maintain his grip on the people, considering that in these two regions, the chiefs are highly respected by the people? Yes, that was in the past. The chiefs and fonts of the northwest and southwest region, honestly speaking, I'm not afraid about that. They have no legitimacy anymore. I'll give you an example. When you go to Burkina Faso, in Ouagadougou, the chief of the Mosi people, when you go to the chiefdom, when you run away, you have a problem. Nobody crosses and enters into the palace, because that chief or that font of the Mosi people has been above all these brouhaha of the political milieu. But our chiefs, when you are a member of the CPDM, it means you are partisan. How do you expect the people to respect you anymore? No, the thing is that I'm not trying to desecrate the royalty or the tradition. It doesn't exist anymore. Those chiefs have no bearings on what is going on, because they created nothing, they saw nothing coming. So you can appoint the whole chiefs of the southwest region and including all the fonts of the northwest regions. It is not going to change the current situation, because the underlying or the causes of what brought these problems has not been solved, because we lie to ourselves, we pretend, and we are not honest to confront the reality until we have the courage to speak the truth. This problem is not going to be solved right now. Are you saying that they are just going to be stooges like the others? Of course, yes. They are stooges, because I don't see any proposal. Besides sometimes the outbursts of Chief Mukete, but then what has that got to do with the reality on the ground? So, in reality, you think that the chiefs should be apolitical, they shouldn't be involved in politics? Of course, yes. If you can remember, the chiefs of the southwest formerly and those of the northwest, they commanded a lot of respect. But do they command any iota of respect today? If you say yes, then you are dishonest. They don't command any. Maybe there are some individuals, but a single swallow doesn't mean spring is around. They have dirtied their hands, is that what you're saying? Yes, they have really soiled their hands. They are no longer neutral. They are no longer representing the people. They are representing a government that is at variance with what the people are want, or what people are desiring or want. Eli Smith, veteran journalist, thanks for accepting to be a guest in this edition of the 6 p.m. Primetime Newscast. It is always a pleasure. Whenever I'm invited, I will report for duty. Thanks. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Goodbye.